I've been around for many a long year. I stole many a man's soul of faith. I was there with Jesus Christ.
And that song can be for no other person but indeed the Devils. This, of course, is Nick Severi again with another episode of... Dave, you got to help me out with this. What are we going to call this show? Are we calling it XFL Chat, XFL Weekly? If it's weekly, I'd be fired by now, but any ideas?
I have no idea. Thanks for the interruption.
Yes, that's right, folks. Thank you indeed for interrupting this show. Once again, this is Nick Severi for the XFL Weekly Chat, and I am here today with, as you can tell from the entrance music, entrance music sounds like you're a wrestler or something, with the head coach, general manager, starting quarterback, starting running back, you name it, he is it, of the... Dave, what are you, the New Jersey Devils? Is that what we're doing?
I am the New Jersey Devil, yes.
So now, I guess if this were Chris Berman doing the show, we would say it's the football New Jersey Devils, right?
Yes, the New Jersey Football Devils.
Thank you. Of the New Jersey Football Devils fame, Dave, thank you for joining us. So we are now post-draft. So I haven't been paying as much attention to the standings as you have. I've just been playing games. Where are we? Who's in the lead? Who's been? Let's start with that. Let's start with standings first.
Well, if you look at the East Conference, in the Eastern Conference we have the Hackettstown Hagglers at 12-3 for the season. They're in first place there. They have a 4.5-game lead over their the next highest or the closest opponent in their conference, which would be the Georgia Force, but they've only played 4 games, all of which against Keys, and they're at 2-2. So actually, while the Hagglers are in first place, technically the Georgia Force, if they were to win out or do better than the Hagglers, then they would have the inside track to first place in the Eastern Conference.
So it's currently then it's going to be the Hagglers, of course, Gazeletsky, LeVar Minor, Matthew Lombardi, and then coming in at 4th place, yours truly, me.
In the Eastern Conference, yes. You're 6 games behind the Hagglers. Lombardi is 5 games behind, but you two, it's a really close contest right there. He's 4-5, you're 3-6. You almost pulled out a win last night against, second win against Keys last night against the Hagglers, in which case you would have been tied with Lombardi. But you didn't. You can still make up those games. How many more games do you have left against him?
Against Gaza?
Against Lombardi.
Probably 2. What are we doing? We're doing 4 in conference, 2 out of conference?
Yes.
Yeah, then I have 2 more against Lombardi.
Right, so those are going to be huge games to decide who gets in 3rd place and who has to hope that the Western Conference team in 4th place is worse. And then, so that's what's going on in the East. I'm sorry, what? So that's what's going on in the East, and then here out in the West Coast, the Devils are in first place at 9-3, but the Shamrocks are in second place. They're technically a game and a half behind, but they're 4-1. They have the least amount of losses in the league, and they have destroyed the Devils both times they've played them this season. So while the Devils are currently sitting in first place, it's not a secure first place by any stretch of the imagination. And then the rest of the Western Conference rounds out with the Street Dingoes at 1-7. And the Memphis Monkeys at 2-10. So they are 7 games back, and they're actually, it's interesting because they do have 2 wins, whereas the Dingoes have 1, but the Dingoes have played less games. So it's going to be a battle, and they still have 2 more games against each other. They split their first 2, and that'll determine who gets to 3rd place and who most likely will be out. Looking at the Eastern Conference standings, because right now the Western Conference looks to have the weaker records, but everything could change. Still, it's not early in the season by any stretch of the imagination, but it's earlier.
Now, the way scheduling, not scheduling, but the way seeding works, are you still based on your conference, or do you look at both conferences and do overall seeding?
getting the 1 and 2 seeds. However, this year it's not like that. It's for the most part solely within your conference, except there is one exception to that. But basically, you're playing within your conference. The exception to that is that the wild card team is determined by the wild card team will be the higher ranked or the one with the better record out of the 2 fourth place finishers. So there's only one. So only one of the one team will be eliminated this season, but the higher ranked of the 4th place finisher will be in it as a wild card team, and they will play the lower ranked of the 3rd place seed. So you'll compare the records of the 3rd place seeds, and whoever has a lower record between the two, they will be forced to play in a wild card game.
So basically, at this point, pretty much, if we're assuming John is out, we basically have our playoff matchup set up.
Yeah, but we can't assume that John is out by any stretch because the Dingoes have only 1 win, and Memphis has actually more wins than them. So it's a dogfight there, and they still have 8 games left, and the Dingoes have 12 games left. So it's still possible that an Eastern Conference team could be eliminated, in the wild card, or not be. It's too early to tell how it's going to play out.
Looking at the scores and the standings, which team has stood out? Has there been a particular game that has caught you off by surprise? What things have been most memorable early on in the season?
Well, certainly the game last night that you destroyed Keys stood out, 63-21. That was first of all, it was a huge upset, and it was big because one, it now gives Minor the inside track to the Eastern Conference first place. I mean, it also is. I mean, and this is more of a pride thing, but the overall standings, which really don't matter too much, but that could hurt him in the overall standings. As right now, the Devils are 3 or a game and a half behind them. Both teams have 3 losses. Devils have 9 wins. The Haggos have 12. And the Haggos have clinched a playoff spot. That is the one thing. But as far as the games that stood out, yeah, certainly the game last night that you beat him, that was unexpected. And frankly, the 2 games that Minor came in and beat Keys as well were surprises. Lombardi, I'll tell you, the season started off with a huge win that I was not expecting, but Lombardi came into Boston and defeated the defending champs in the first game, and the Shamrocks. So that was a big surprise. I mean, I guess I'm not surprised by it because I know that the Shamrocks are very good, but, they came in and really demolished me in the second game that we played them. So I was surprised to be beaten that badly, and I didn't actually expect to be beaten at all because I have some confidence, but it's not like a shocker that he could beat me because he's still a good team. That's really what stands out as far as the actual specific game.
So who do you have left to play?
I actually have a tough road ahead. I still have 2 games against Keys, and I have 2 more games against the Shamrocks. I do have 1 against the Street Dingoes, 1 against the Monkeys, and then I have 2 games against the Georgia Force and Minor. So I have a tough schedule remaining. I've gone 3-0 against both the Dingoes and the Monkeys, but they were really tough, hard-fought games. Haven't played Minor, haven't even really seen how he plays at all, so that'll be an interesting matchup. And he's always difficult to play. So.
Yeah, I'm surprised you guys haven't played yet, because I know you guys usually are online during the week. Are you guys just waiting towards the end of the season to make that the way we're going to wrap up the year?
Yeah, pretty much. We decided early on that since we're always available, it's not like we're going to have to track each other down to fight each other, and we wanted both of us to have tough games at the end of the season that meant something. So that's kind of just this decision we made. So we've been playing each other in exhibition and fun games, but we haven't played a real game yet because we wanted to save that towards the end.
So
between that and also me and the Shamrocks as well.
So the draft obviously is over. We're well into the regular season. How is your team shaped up? Which draft picks have turned out well? Which ones have been busts?
My defensive draft picks have stood up reasonably well. I mean, we have some weaknesses, but I tend to think that that's possibly scheming. But and that would be my fault. But in general, I'm pretty happy with my defense. Where I say that there's a bust is certainly Jamal Charles is not consistent. He was great in the beginning of the season. He was able to run it up and down, but then of late, he has been fumbling. He had a huge fumble against your team, the Sentinels, which cost us a game, frankly. And, he's not been able to get outside. People have been able to stop him, which is really what one of his strengths were going into the game, going into the season. And that's largely been stopped. So he's kind of in a bust. I mean, I can't call him a complete bust, but of late he's been figured out. And the other one I have to say that I'm somewhat disappointed with is Peyton Manning. And I don't dislike him. I think that he's a good quarterback in the game and for a team. And he certainly can hit throws that a lot of other people can't. The problem is that he has no mobility. And when you're being rushed a lot, there's a lot of times that we're being blitzed, or just where you want a play to develop a little, and you want a quarterback that can roll out a little. If he's on the run at all, he can't hit his receivers. He's the most accurate and in the pocket passer that we can imagine. So we have set plays that it's just fired off. He's great at that. He's absolutely great. But there's some plays where you want him to roll a little, and he can't do that. So even in the game versus the Sentinels, the second game, we had to take him out and put Sanchez in there. And we ended up pulling it out because Sanchez had the mobility to be able to do that and be able to throw on the run and occasionally rush for some extra yards and do some things that he can't. So I absolutely wouldn't call Manning a bust because he, against certain teams, he saved our bacon against certain teams. He did against the Dingoes. There was a game where he had a last-second bomb that I don't think Sanchez could have made. So it's kind of like a platoon system, like you would almost have in baseball, like with Lenny Dykstra and Mookie Wilson, where certain teams, certain games you play one, certain ones you play the other, depending. And it's the same kind of thing. So we kind of using that style with Sanchez and Manning and interchanging the two. So it's not that he's a bust. It's just that I maybe would have liked a little bit more mobility in quarterback, and maybe I shouldn't have drafted a quarterback so early, and I'll have to rethink that maybe next time.
What team has stood out in playing them? What team has been? Well, actually, it's a two-part question. One is, what team have you matched up really well with, and what team do you absolutely want to have no part of in the playoffs, at least until maybe close to the Super Bowl, conference championship, places like that?
For me, matching up for me personally, I don't want to see you in the playoffs. We just play each other, play very similar styles, and it just causes a lot of difficulty for us. The Shamrocks are, they are our hump that we have to get over. They're just a good team that has figured us out and knows how to beat us. And but so it's not necessarily that I don't want to face them. It's although I kind of don't. But it's one of those things like in basketball where like the Knicks had the Bulls all those years and they had to get over that hump, or the Pistons had to get. I think it was the Bulls had to get past the Pistons.
Yeah, the Bulls getting past Detroit.
Right. So it's the same kind of thing. Like we have to get past Boston for this, and it'd be great if we could just sidestep them. But obviously they're sitting there right in our face in the conference, so I don't really see much of a way to get past this whole thing without getting past him. So I don't necessarily want to meet him in the playoffs, but you gotta. There's no easy way out. There's no shortcut home, and we're probably gonna have to go through them. Hopefully, we can find a way to win the next two games against them in the regular season and pull out, the first place in the conference, and then host the game and have the bye all the way through. But otherwise, it's the road to the league championship game. We'll go through, at least from our conference, we'll go through Boston, and I don't necessarily want that. And then Geese, of course, and we won't face him, obviously, until the league championship game, but, he's just, he is what he is. He's so good. I mean, I do think that one advantage that we have is that it's one game and out. It's not a series, and we can possibly pull out all the stops and pull out a game. Any given Sunday or whatever day, we could possibly do that against Keys. But he's always one that anyone would fear facing. Other than that, I mean, there's so many good teams, and you never know, when it's a one-game format, I mean, everybody's played tough. The Dingoes really deserve so much of a better record than what they have. I mean, they're 1-7, but they are an excellent team, and they're kind of like how I was last season. Last season, I was in every game, I was really close, there would just be one little thing at the end of games, the Dingoes almost beat, the Hagglers, but, he hit I think it was a 57 or 59-yard field goal with no time left on the clock to win the game. Their record doesn't reflect how good they played. And, and even the Monkeys, the whole thing with them is that they play they play Monkeys football, going forward on fourth down and whatever else at their own 20. If they would not do those kind of things and be able to develop the kind of, because they have tremendous passing, they're tremendously fast, and they're actually a pretty good team. And if they catch you off guard, they can certainly scare you. The Blues, they've beaten everybody in our conference, except for me, but that doesn't mean they couldn't come back and beat me. So, I certainly would fear him. And Minor, I have no idea. But knowing the history of Minor, I would not want to necessarily face him because, he's Minor.
And that will take us to the end of this episode. Dave, we now have to turn our attention to the other people in the league. So I'm going to leave that up to you to round up some of these future interviews for the podcast. Dave, stick around. We'll talk offline. For everyone else, I hope you've enjoyed the show, and there will hopefully be more to come. Dave, thanks again.
Thank